You guys remember Tim Geithner? He was Treasury Secretary for Barack Obama. He did the bank bailouts, and he told us we had to do it. We had to do it, but we have your best interests in mind. But these bankers, but golly gee, I'm so mad at them. But we gave them all the money anyway, because of course we were forced to. Well, what's Geithner up to these days? He's running a company. Let's tell you about that. As Treasury Secretary in the Obama administration, Timothy Geithner condemned predatory lenders. Now he is president of Warburg Pincus, a New York firm that controls a private equity fund that owns Mariner Finance. Well, let's find out more about Mariner Finance, because I know that Geithner will not stand for predatory lenders. Well, Washington Post, terrific story about this, and they have a couple of different examples of people who were personally affected. One is Stephen Huggins that they start the story with. He gets a check in the mail one day for $1,200. That's weird, right? And it says you have some period of time to cash this check and it's yours. Now you read the fine print, it says, and you'll be charged 33%. He thinks, well, that's not good. I don't want that. That's too high an interest rate. He puts it away. But their effort is to try to tempt him. Well, as it turns out that a week later, his Chevy pickup breaks down, and now he needs the money. So he goes and uses the check. And that is when the trouble begins. So let me pick it up from the Washington Post there. Within a year, the company, Mariner Finance, sued Huggins for $3,221.27. That included the original $1,200 plus an additional $800 a company representative later persuaded him to take, plus hundreds of dollars in processing fees, insurance, and other items, plus interest. It didn't matter that he'd made a few payments already. Oh, you want to make payments? I don't care about your payments. No. You give it to me now, otherwise we're going to crush you. Okay, to give you a sense of how outrageous a 33% interest rate is, Donald Trump, and to be fair, it was Trump and he is a buffoon, but couldn't make money in casinos because he had taken out an interest rate that was way too high. And even though the house always wins, it still didn't cover the interest rate because the interest rate was 14%. The ones being charged to middle-class Americans through this company is 33%. It's impossible to keep up with that, let alone all the stuff that they add on top of it that's all in the fine print that was not at all clear. So then you have an overwhelming debt that you can't possibly pay back. So an equipment operator in Nashville says, that's this Huggins guy, says, it would have been cheaper for me to go out and borrow money from the mob. Well, in a lot of ways that's true. And that's why loan sharking was prohibited. But what we've done is we've made it legal again, but we put them in suits. So, no, it's okay, they're in a suit. It's the same guy charging you a similar rate, but it's okay because we made it legal. Just like we made bribery legal by keeping money in politics. Just like we made opium legal by calling it opioids and saying, yeah, it's for pain relief, sure, keep on taking it. No, you won't get addicted because these drug dealers are in suits. So John C. Morton is the general counsel for Mariner Finance, so he's going to defend them. But listen to the way that he does. He says, quote, the installment lending industry provides an important service to tens of millions of Americans who might otherwise not have safe, responsible access to credit. What does that mean? Why would getting credit be unsafe? I go to the bank and I get credit, or I go somewhere else, I get credit. No, he's saying, well, at least it's not the mob and we're not breaking your legs. I mean, we're maybe breaking your bank account, we're breaking your house, we're breaking your life. But hey, I didn't break your kneecap. I gave it to you in a safe way. Oh, I appreciate that. Okay, so now John Lafferty used to work at Mariner and he was a manager there. What does he think? And he says, quote, it's basically a way of monetizing poor people. Jim Baker is a private equity stakeholder project person who works there. And he said, you've got billionaires extracting wealth from working people. They found a way for billionaires and giant corporations to monetize you even more effectively. Now, it involves pulverizing your life. That's a sad day for you. Geithner and his friends got to make an extra buck. Okay, the companies, let me break it down for you. Great report, by the way, by Peter Wiersky from the Washington Post. The company's other tactics include borrowing money for as little as 4 or 5%, thanks to the bond market, and lending it at rates as high as 36%. Well, that's pretty convenient. If you had access to billions of dollars and you could borrow at 4% and then lend it at 36, you'd make a lot of money too. Now, you'd have to put aside your shame and your principles, etc., as you ruin these people's lives, but I guess they think it's a clever business model. Okay, well, on the math it is. Among its rivals, Mariner stands out for the frequent use of mass mail checks, which allows customers to accept a high interest loan on an impulse. Just sign the check. It has become a key marketing method. Every part of this sounds like the mob. No, it's okay, Tony, take the money. You pay me back later, take the money, okay? And hey, doesn't everybody at some point have a problem and they can't get enough money and they're in a bind and that check's sitting there? And there's a reason why we outlawed loan sharking, but it's back as long as now it's legal. Mariner generally targets people who have imperfect credit scores, according to the bond rating agencies. After a mail check is cashed by a recipient, a Mariner rep follows up and solicits more information about the borrower. This helps in collections and sometimes proposes additional lending. Now, they know they're going after people who are credit risk and who are imperfect in their credit ratings. And so they know exactly the game they're playing. Then they call up the guy and go, oh yeah, what's your information? Because later they know he's not gonna be able to pay. Not all of them, of course, but unfortunately far too many of them. And then they'll use that information against them while pretending to help him. And then they try to push more loans on him so that he'll get even further debt. This is sick. And you can say, well, hey, look, you borrowed 4, you give it at 36, what a great business model. The mob's also a good business model, doesn't mean we should do it. They do make a lot of money, so do the cartels. Okay, more. Aggressive collection practices that include calling delinquent customers once a day and embarrassing them by calling their friends and relatives. God, they must be so proud of the work that they do. Now I'm going to go back to Tim Geithner, back when he worked for Obama and pretended to care about regular folks and the abuses of the financial industry. Back then he said the financial crisis exposed our system of consumer protection as a dysfunctional mess, leaving ordinary Americans way too vulnerable to fraud and other malfeasance. Now, back then he was pretending to warn you. He gets out of office, now starts running this private equity company that owns Mariner Finance, and he's like, oh, the regulatory system is a mess. That leaves ordinary Americans vulnerable. Great, let's jump in. That is his actions. If he does not like their business model, he didn't have to invest in them, and he could at any point take away his investment, but he's choosing not to. So a former worker at Mariner Finance said this: most customers do not read what they get in the mail. It's just little tiny type. They just see the $1,200 for you. That's the main thing that they see. Now listen to what Tim Geithner said back in the day when he was working in the Obama administration. Remember, the guy who worked at Mariner Finance says, we know they're not going to read the fine print. Back then, Geithner said, many borrowers, especially in subprime markets, bit off more than they could chew because they didn't understand the absurdly complex and opaque terms of their financial arrangements or were actively channeled into the riskiest deals. That is exactly what Mariner Finance does now. And he's like, oh great, we're making money. I don't know, maybe he wasn't warning us before. Maybe what he was saying is, I can't wait to get back into the market to take advantage of you suckers. We're not gonna regulate anything. And even if we do, the Republicans are gonna strip away what little regulations we did. And you guys are all vulnerable. And it's easy to target the most vulnerable and deceive them by putting it into fine print. Apparently this was his blueprint for how he would conduct himself after he was in office. Now I want to go to another anonymous former branch manager for this company. He said, were there a few loans that actually helped people? Yes. Were 80% of them predatory? Probably. Now look, you can disagree about the numbers, and that's just one guy and his opinion. But obviously they are preying on people who they think will be more susceptible to this. And when they go to collect, it is crushing. Finally, that same branch manager said, quote, I'm still embarrassed by some of the things I did there. Tim Geithner, on the other hand, not embarrassed. Still president of the private equity company that invested into that company. Has not withdrawn it, and that is where it stands today. So I guess he must be really proud of the work that he's doing. So yes, Donald Trump is a nightmare, and that is absolutely true, and we warned you about that as well. But don't think that if we got rid of Trump that everything would be fixed. The system was already so broken through the bipartisan agreement to help corporations and the banks and to screw over the American voters that it made people so frustrated that they put Donald Trump in charge. Going back to that status quo is not a good day. That gives us a system that was so broken it produced a monster like Trump. And that is also, unfortunately, the handiwork of people like Tim Geithner. We must change the system entirely. We must get money out of politics so that our politicians represent us and not their donors, because if they represent private interests, this is what private interests do to maximize their gains from you. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.